Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by Diamine, here in the glass 80 milliliter bottle. Red Dragon. It's a deep, rich red, and all the tests were done in this Kaweco Sport, which I thought matched the pen rather nicely, with a broad nib. Now, before we get to the chromatography, I'd like to compare it to a couple other reds. So here we've got Nikita, Schaefer Script Red, Red Eel, Diatramentus Orchids, J. Herbon's Rose Rouge, Sailor Gentle Grenade. But the comparison I'd really like to make is Diamine Oxblood and Diamine Red Dragon. Both are very dark and fairly close in color. Oxblood is just a little bit darker, but they both have these hints of brown in them. So they sort of have that bloody red quality. Now let's look at the chromatography. Now, when I was doing this chromatography, when I dipped it, it bled back into the paper, or like it, whatever. We're ignoring that one. So here, as you can see, not a lot of water resistance. Goes up into sort of this beautiful gold color. And then above that is sort of a lighter red, and then above that is a deep dark maroon right at the edge. And as you might be able to see in this bottle, or not, oh, actually that might help. Yeah, as you can see, it doesn't really stick to the bottle, which is one of the nice qualities about this ink. It doesn't really dye converters, and since it has very little water resistance, it's very easy to clean out of pens. I've never had it dye the inside of a pen. Starting from the top down in density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. 17 seconds to dry, which is not obscene when you think of the fact that this is, you know, a broad nib and it's Clairefontaine, and this is a very saturated ink. It's very dark. You do get some shading. Since it's so dark, it's kind of hard to see, but it's there. Not a lot of water resistance, and it dyed the paper. Not obscenely, but a bit. So, next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. Again, a very dark red. You definitely see those brown undertones. For some reason, it took 18 seconds to dry, so it took a second longer. Again, you get decent shading, but I'm going to have a heck of a time getting it on camera. But anyways, no visible sheen. Water test is, I mean, it's pretty much gone, and it did dye the paper just a touch. Next is Tomoe River Paper, where it definitely looks dark. I mean, this almost looks as dark as Oxblood. But, oh, you might be able to see it. There's some sheen here. There's a gold sheen in the really wet parts. So like in the scrubby. And you can also see it in the letters, but I'm not going to be able to get it on camera. But in the scrubby, you can see it. It took 19 seconds to dry. We've definitely seen worse on Tomoe River Paper, especially with a broad nib. Yeah, it's no bleed feather or spread. I said there is some show-through potential because it is a very dark red. Again, essentially no water resistance. It did dye the paper a touch. Yeah, it is fairly dark, so that might be bothersome to some people. Now, this is the old, original 20-pound copier paper that I should have appreciated when I had it. But, yeah, 8 seconds to dry, which I cannot explain. I do not know why it took that long. But, yeah, here I feel like it lightened just a little bit. Here it looks more red than it was before. Before it definitely touched more on brown. Yeah, it could be worse, but could be better. No bleed. God, I miss this paper. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where it definitely starts to look like it's hinting at brown. It's definitely red, but it's like if you weren't paying attention, you might think that it was just brown. 3 seconds to dry. Bleed, feathering, spread. That water test is a disaster. I mean, it actually looks like little explosions went off. It's a mess. Yeah, so not great. And lastly is Moleskin Notebook Paper, where it definitely took on a brown color. This starts to look like a mahogany. It's, yeah, 6 seconds to dry. Feathering is pretty darn bad. I'm going to try and hold really still so you can see that because it's everywhere. And a lot of them are kind of tiny, so, but it's just so, it's bad. And that water test, that's pretty bad, so maybe not the best to use a broad nib on this paper. But, yeah, so there you go for your consideration. Diamine's Red Dragon. I think it's a great deep red. It's beautifully well behaved for such a dark red. I mean, a lot of really dark reds, including oxblood occasionally, has been known to dye the inside of pens. I've never had that problem with this. It's rich, it's bold, it's well behaved. It sheens on Tomoe River and occasionally on Rhodia. And yeah, I like it. So for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.